So we're going to talk about Chappell Roan, but before we talk about Chappell Roan, there is something very important that I want to talk about that is actually correlated with this in a certain way. So you might have heard that there was a massive bill passed in India, which was essentially a massive piece of transphobic legislation, endangering the lives of trans folks, trans men, trans women, and genderqueer people throughout India. And this is a statement from Hindus for Human Rights condemning the passage of this bill. This is really important stuff, obviously, for many reasons. One of the things that's really chilling about it, as I show you this, is that there's folks on TikTok expressing concern that some of the wording in the bill, that support from non-trans Indians who are allies can also lead to them being jailed. Here's that TikTok.
How could it be so easy for the government to just come and tell us that you stop being friends with transgender individuals, otherwise we can actually put you in jail? Friends, transgender individuals, especially those who are abandoned by their families, they choose their family. Sometimes maybe a friend helps them out, an NGO, a community helps them out, or just a lover who becomes their constant support system. The new bill has added 4 new offenses under Section 18 of the 2019 Act, which is entirely built on the premise that transgender identity can be forced upon somebody. These provisions under this section are so vaguely described that any individual, a social worker, a community just helping a trans individual out understand their lived experience can become liable to be put in jail for life.
So this is how dire the situation is. It's obviously following from a vast amount of anti-trans legislation and anti-trans sentiment being stoked by the global right wing around the world. And I will also just share with you an organization that you can donate to in order to facilitate support for these folks in India. So this is Sahodari Foundation. The link is in the description for this live stream, and it'll be in the description for the VOD as well. This is the type of stuff that's on the line when we talk about standing up for marginalized people, and when we talk about standing up for trans people, for trans rights. Okay. That being said, why don't we talk about Chappell Roan? So you might have been hearing about some Chappell Roan discourse. You might have a similar perspective to Zay Dante, this comedian who is pretty popular online.
Breaking news, Chappell Roan beat up a bunch of puppies for no reason. She punched them in their puppy faces, then they all died. His reaction. She doesn't have the vibe of someone who gets along with puppies, so I'm not surprised. The president of a country should ban her from traveling there forever. I did not do those things. I wasn't even there. Shout out to all the dogs. Oh, well, nevertheless.
Yo, where was she born? Can we look into that to see if there's a reason to hate her? Didn't we do that last year? Oh, it's definitely been long enough to run it back.
We're gonna get her.
We just gotta
get her.
I hate Mondays.
So this is how it feels to live in Chappell Roan world. A Chappell Roan fan receives no rest. A Chappell Roan friend, a Chappell Roan herself receives no rest in this world. I think what we'll say from the top is that this is not a stream that is going to be especially friendly towards anti-Chappell Roan sentiment, but if you're coming in and you don't like Chappell Roan, if you think she seems mean, if you've had a bad interaction with her, if you just don't like her music, you don't like her vibe, I just implore you to kind of hear me out, because your feelings about Chappell Roan are not necessarily the problem here at all. The problem is a widespread misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech campaign against Chappell Roan that is being pushed, it seems, by actors with agendas that are also very likely to be connected to some of the things that Chappell Roan has made a public image speaking out against. So regardless of how you feel about a celebrity, it's obviously we live in a time period where people are pretty hostile about celebrity and hostile about people with money. And a lot of that is very understandable. We're also living in a time period of institutional, systemic, imperial collapse. Shit is bad. People can't afford stuff. And a lot of the times, because of this, a lot of information and narratives online can push people and those sentiments into different directions. And the purpose of what we're going to talk about here is to help you kind of think critically about where you receive your information from, and about just how bad things have gotten online, to where some of the things that are so obviously questionable when you see information or supposed information are just not being questioned at all. And there's a lot of actors at play that are not necessarily legitimate. Like, let's start here, okay? So I actually wanted to start by, in the wake of what we just saw, I wanted to share this just to give you a feel for how it's going over there on Twitter, for instance. This is an AI generated GIF somebody's posted of Chappell Roan removing her face and revealing herself to be Jeffrey fucking Epstein. Okay, Jeffrey Epstein. This is where things are going. This is some sort of account called Pop Clocked, which I think is probably not in the US. And they repost a bunch of different stuff, apparently, that sometimes has like a left-wing political view. But like, they have been consistently posting very hateful things about Chappell Roan, and they're far from the only one. If you were on Twitter, you may have also seen this tweet, or you may have heard people reference a specific tweet. This is a tweet by somebody named Laced Bras, who says that they went to high school with Chappell Roan, and anyone who went to Willard from 2012 to 2015 can tell you how insufferable, homophobic, and racist she and her boyfriend were. Now, the trouble here is, this is not a real person. Laced Bras is some random Twitter account that is using this person's TikTok account named Danny Zaza as a fake image impersonating this person, okay, in order to pretend that this is a woman who went to high school with Chappell Roan. You can see screenshots of people saying, hey, someone's pretending to be you on Twitter, making up a lot of stuff, and it's going viral. Can you confirm it isn't you? And this person says, I do not have Twitter. So this is the type of stuff going on social media right now. These are the types of people that you're seeing say salacious things about Chappell Roan. And not only that, but we also have a screenshot. We have a screenshot of this very same account DMing somebody else on Twitter and saying, with the tweet attached, how much I got to pay for you to quote this? We getting this B word up out of here. So this person made a fake account impersonating somebody's profile on TikTok and then went around and offered to pay people to quote tweet this tweet, which ended up having like 90K likes and a bunch of quote tweets and retweets. Now, does this mean everybody that has been talking about Chappell Roan in a negative way is a bot? Obviously not. Does this mean everybody who is talking about Chappell Roan or doesn't like Chappell Roan is a fake account? Obviously not. But there are a lot of really suspicious accounts right now perpetuating this idea that Chappell Roan is XYZ bad person. Here's another example. So some people are collecting evidence of this smear campaign, and they show this one Twitter account. Some dude named God's Will Red with an AI profile picture who has a soccer ball in his description. Probably not even a real person, has a blue check mark. Look at all the tweets that suddenly popped up like 2 days ago. This is some sort of bot account that 2 days ago started posting all of these different tweets about how bad Chappell Roan is. And a lot of these images that you're seeing as well, they're ones that you're going to see again and again, because a lot of these same accounts are using the same images and videos and hammering home basically the same conjecture, the same points. This is a really important example that we're going to get back to in a little bit. Some account named Joe Blessed or Jobless D13 on TikTok emerged suddenly like a couple days ago, and ever since posted at least 5 different TikToks all talking about how bad Chappell Roan is. And as you can see, these are not insignificant TikToks. This first one had, as of this screenshot being taken, 10.4 million views. Chappell said she wouldn't send security after a fan. Meanwhile, Chappell literally sending security after a fan at the airport last month. I wonder if there was context behind that, as well as a video that we are going to be talking about later, which ended up getting 12 million views on Twitter, being disseminated by other small accounts, let's just say. Again, you may not be a bot and you may dislike Chappell Roan for whatever reason, but it is absolutely not controversial to say that, first of all, Twitter is full of bots, social media is full of bots, but more so than just bots, it's full of accounts that are very low effort, using the same content and the same rhetoric over and over again, in this case to promote a narrative about Chappell Roan. And as a kind of extra thing on top of it, we're going to talk really briefly about this article from BuzzFeed, which has just basically out and said that a new report found Chappell Roan was the target of a bot-driven online attack. This is Natasha Jokic. I've covered some of her stuff before. Now, Natasha Jokic is talking to Gudea, which, if you know me, if you've known some of my previous coverage of Taylor Swift, I do not have very good feelings about this company. This research company previously made headlines for its report, finding that Taylor Swift was also subject to a coordinated online attack. This was a pretty dubious report. All that it found, though, with some very vague language, was that there was a lot of basically not real or suspicious or sus posts about Taylor Swift in a specific time period. And it's found the same thing about this recent discourse/news cycle with Chappell Roan. They found that 4.2% of users contributing to the Chappell conversation at that time were non-typical. I love this very vague language, i.e. were very likely to be bots, as well as that being a high percentage of bots in and of itself. Apparently, they accounted for over 23% of the posts. Now, this type of vague language is not as helpful as I would like a type of report about this to be. If it was just by itself, then maybe I would feel pretty annoyed by it. But we're seeing how the bots actually look. And that's not to say that there weren't bots being used against Taylor Swift, only that this Gudea company really, it seems to just be promoting that it does AI PR stuff for people. That being said, it's just more evidence or more potential evidence mounting on top of other evidence showing you that a lot of this hate campaign against Chappell Roan right now, very obviously not sincere. and it's very obviously coordinated or strange in certain ways. And that doesn't seem to me to be the biggest coincidence, because as a lot of other people have pointed out, a couple of months ago, not even less than 2 months ago, Chappell Roan left a talent agency, the Casey Wasserman talent agency, because it turned out that Casey Wasserman was in the Epstein files, sending lovey-dovey messages to Ghislaine Maxwell. So Chappell Roan was one of multiple artists that made a public statement and announced that they left the agency. She said, "No artist, agent, or employee should ever be expected to defend or overlook actions that conflict so deeply with our own moral values." And there's a particular line that I want to point out here in this particular article. CNN has contacted his agency and a crisis communication firm representing him for comment. So a crisis communication firm is currently working with this guy, Casey Wasserman. And what we know about crisis communication firms in Hollywood is that they've been actually subject of a lot of discourse lately, because people keep using them to do smear campaigns of other people. There's been a lot of coverage about, for instance, Johnny Depp, Justin Baldoni, Drake, other potential clients of these. This is such a terribly laid out website. Good God, HuffPost. Basically working with crisis communication firms in order to protect a certain public figure's image by attacking the people making accusations towards them. As we know, Johnny Depp is an abuser. There's a lot of people that will turn off this video right now and be like, wow, how dare you ever say Justin Baldoni or Johnny Depp did anything wrong? Obviously, it was the women in those situations that did everything wrong. And I'm not here to talk about Amber Heard or Blake Lively. The Johnny Depp shit, I defending him in 2026, I just can't do anything with that. And as far as Blake Lively, again, I'm not touching that discourse, but we do know that this is a phenomenon that exists, okay? We do know that we have text message evidence of Justin Baldoni that Blake Lively put forward, where one of the people that were part of this crisis communications firm said, we can bury anyone, okay? There was very clear discussion of coordinating to smear women, spoke out against these men. Okay, alleged abusers, let's say. So Mars points out, we got to talk about how the cringe compilations brain broke people into being SJW sensitive and hating. I've seen how a lot of people in real life have low-key been conditioned to be a lot more insensitive because of these. I think this is a pretty relevant point, because despite the fact that, and we're going to get into it, a lot of the supposed evidence about Chappell Roan being this horrible person, or being, for instance, this rich kid lying about being poor or whatever the case might be, despite the fact that this is based off of hearsay and can easily be disputed, a lot of this stuff really doesn't get accepted by the crowd of people that doesn't like Chappell Roan, that is contributing to this online hate campaign. A lot of it is real people, not bots. A lot of them are, I think, very sincere, believing all of these negative things about Chappell Roan we'll talk about in a bit. And for those people, what I want to say is essentially, I think you are just disliking a person and you're going to go with whatever appears to be evidence supporting your dislike for this person. And that is the kind of mentality that is very easy to manipulate when you are, for instance, running a smear campaign against somebody. By the way, you might have noticed that the title of this stream is that this is a Zionist psy-op against Chappell Roan. And I'm surprised that I haven't necessarily addressed this so far. But to be clear, as we get into the conclusion section especially, you're going to see how there is a very political reality underneath all of this. I think a lot of this stuff, we're looking at it and we're like, this is so bizarre, right? Some of the things that people are outright saying that I'm going to show you about Chappell Roan, it just feels like it's not even sincere, or it's bizarre, or it's extremely hateful. And it's coming from all types of people, okay? That weird account that showed that gif of her unzipping her head and becoming Jeffrey Epstein, they're posting a bunch of pro-Palestine stuff. But then there's a lot of people that are posting other political agendas that are also contributing to this. So it's clear that what these people share is some type of dislike about specific types of people or this specific type of person. And we're going to get into why. And a lot of it does have to do with what Chappell Roan represents politically. And that includes her multiple public statements in support of Palestinian rights. Call Me IQ points out also that this stuff goes way beyond just Hollywood, but obviously Hollywood is an important hub for it. But it's not like patriarchy didn't exist before Hollywood existed, right? Yeah, a lot of the people that I'm actually speaking to here, I'm personally, I really like Chappell Roan. I really like her music. I really like her work. I really like her activism. I also have critiques of Chappell Roan. There are very valid critiques to be made of Chappell Roan, particularly her working with MAC, a company that is pretty Zionist. She became a brand ambassador for them recently, that makeup company. There's also other things that you can bring up about Chappell Roan, maybe just her articulation or whatever the case might be. But these are not reasonable critiques of Chappell Roan. These are oftentimes disingenuous accounts saying very hateful things about Chappell Roan and spreading negative messages. But what we haven't gotten into quite yet is just what these negative messages are based on. What is the actual news in this news cycle? And I purposely waited in order to get the bot stuff out of the way first, just so that when we see this news story that this apparently all started with, it becomes quite clear how little is there and how bizarre it would be for that to bubble over into becoming this type of hate campaign. The lesbophobia is absolutely going to get pointed out as well. But there's a reason that I'm hampering down on the Zionist aspect of it. And that's what I also will articulate more towards the conclusion. So Olivia, I got you right now. I'll get into what is not reasonable here. So here's what started it. We're not going to spend too much time on this because if you've heard about this, you've probably heard about this to death. But here's what started it. Jorginho, former Arsenal midfielder, former top-level penalty taker and very good at recycling the ball midfielder for the Italian national team, who is Brazilian and Italian, put out a post a few weeks ago. Well, actually 6 days ago. God, I don't even know what time is anymore. Put out a post essentially detailing a secondhand account of something that Chappell Roan may have done. I'll read this to you quickly, but 100%, just so you know, like what the actual accusation was before you start hearing what people took this as, okay? So Jorginho Freio says, I went through a very upsetting situation with my family earlier today. My wife is in São Paulo for Lollapalooza, Brazil. This morning, my daughter woke up incredibly excited. She even made a sign because she was so happy to see an artist she really admires or used to admire. Chappell Roan. Very dramatic wording, right? By coincidence, they're staying at the same hotel as this artist. It's not that coincidental because you're rich, you know what I mean? And this is Lollapalooza, right? They're celebrities, so they're being taken care of at the rich people hotel. During breakfast, the artist walked past their table. My daughter, like any child, recognized her, got excited, and just wanted to see it was really her. And the worst part is she didn't even approach her. She simply walked past the singer's table, looked to confirm it was her, smiled, and went back to sit with her mom. She didn't say anything, didn't ask for anything. What happened next was completely disproportionate. A large security guard came over to their table while they were still having breakfast and began speaking in an extremely aggressive manner to both my wife and my daughter, saying that she shouldn't allow my daughter to disrespect or harass other people. Honestly, I don't know at what point simply walking past the table and looking to see if someone is there could be considered harassment, okay? He even said he would file a complaint against them with the hotel. While my 11-year-old daughter was sitting there in tears, my daughter was extremely shaken and cried a lot. I've lived with football, public exposure, and well-known people for many years, and I understand very well what respect and boundaries are. What happened there was not that. It was just a child admiring someone. It's sad to see this kind of treatment coming from those who should understand the importance of fans. At the end of the day, they are the ones who build all of this. I sincerely hope this serves as a moment of reflection. No one should have to go through this, especially not a child. Chappell Roan, without your fans, you would be nothing. And to the fans, she does not deserve your affection. Okay, this was Jorginho's post. One thing I just want you to notice, right? Because I'm not going to get into detail about the background of these folks. I'm not going to, hammer home that these are rich people, that this is a rich footballer. We know that rich footballers, rich male soccer players are not exactly the most woke or the most ethical people in the world. I'm not going to get into how there was apparently a cheating scandal with him and his wife, and how his wife, who we'll see in a bit, apparently stalked somebody who she accused as having been one of his mistresses. We're not going to get into that. All we're going to hammer home here is the fact that even in Jorginho's post, his secondhand account of something that he was not there to see, relaying what happened to his wife and his daughter, he does not say that Chappell Roan told anybody anything, did anything, or, had any contact with the people involved. He says specifically that a large security guard who was part of Chappell Roan's table was very rude towards his wife and his daughter, saying that they shouldn't allow her to disrespect or harass other people. Now, what a lot of people saw with this was, for instance, well, there's obviously, a suggestion here that Chappell Roan was involved in this, and we didn't see her do anything. But the fact that her security guard did this, plus the fact that, we'll get into it, Chappell Roan has been very public about setting boundaries with paparazzi and fans and things like that. It's very believable, and certainly Jorginho believes it, given the fucking way that he ended this shit, saying, do not support this person. She doesn't deserve your affection. We can believe that she told the security guard to go over there and attack them. There's also not a direct accusation that this is Chappell Roan's security guard, only that he was a security guard that's part of their table. Okay. So this got, how many likes do you want to guess on Reddit? This is pop culture chat on Reddit alone. There's many different places you can see a lot of different responses to this. But on pop culture chat alone, this got 43,000 likes. It's the range to send a big security guard to harass a little girl, even though Jorginho does not specifically say that she does. He doesn't know that she does. He's just assuming, right? Even in his account of the thing, he's just assuming that she did that. But whatever, right? reasonable person who doesn't like Chappell Roan might look at this and say, well, look, I mean, she can sometimes be overbearing about her boundaries with paparazzi and fans. Again, we'll get into that. This might have been a thing where she just got overzealous, told the security guard she was uncomfortable, and then the security guard went over and made that wife and daughter of this rich footballer uncomfortable, right? This is, by the way, apparently Jude Law's child. This is another thing people wanted to point out. So this is a woman who used to be with famous English actor Jude Law and now is with famous former English league footballer Jorginho, and this is her daughter with Jude Law. By the way, I feel very bad for the daughter in all of this because obviously something happened that really upset her, or like apparently really upset her, and now she's being dragged all into the news because of it, which I would find kind of embarrassing and mortifying if I was her. So that was Jorginho's accusation. I didn't see Chappell Roan say anything. I don't know if that's Chappell Roan's security guard. All I know is that my daughter went over, looked at her, went back, and then a security guard went over and bullied my daughter and wife. By the way, I wasn't there. Okay, so what was the response? This is an article from Out Magazine, which kind of like goes over the details of it. There's a 271 likes on Twitter from this Pop Crave post. This Pop Crave post got 271 likes on Twitter. 271,000 likes. I'm sorry. This is how much people were reacting to this. And a lot of people were talking about how she doesn't deserve fame. Chappell Roan's PR team, when they realized she sicked security on a famous person's daughter, not a random plebeian child. Sicked security on a famous person's daughter. And this is the office gift that we're going to go with. So here's what happened in response. Chappell Roan made a video. This is her account of events.
I'm just going to tell my half of the story of what happened today with a mother and child who were involved with a security guard who is not my personal security.
She clarifies that this is not her personal security.
I didn't even see a woman and a child. Like, I did not, no one came up to me. No one bothered me. Like, I was just sitting at breakfast in my hotel. I think these people were staying at the hotel as well. So the fact that, like, a security guard I did not ask the security guard to go up and talk to this mother and child. They did not come up to me. They weren't doing anything. It's unfair for security to just assume someone doesn't have good intentions when they have no reason to believe because there's no action even taken.
Notice how she is speaking in defense of the mother and child while just clarifying that she did not see anything that happened, let alone that did she sick the security guard on this person who is not part of her personal security. Okay?
Like, I do not hate people who are fans of my music.
This was also an accusation that came out, which is that Chappell Roan hates her fans, and so obviously she would do this.
I do not hate children.
She also hates kids.
That is crazy. I'm sorry to the mother and child that someone was assuming something, that you would do something, and that if you felt uncomfortable, that makes me really sad. You did not deserve that.
So again, she ends by saying, I'm so sorry to the mother and child who went through that. I feel really bad about it. Okay. She says it's not her personal security. She didn't see what happened, let alone did she tell the security to do anything. And she expresses sympathy with the mother and child multiple times. Okay. Oh, wait, actually, I'm not done with the story, right? So after Chappell Roan does that, multiple people were like, oh, she's lying, you know? And so then Catherine Harding, the mother who was there, the mother of the daughter, who was there with the daughter when this happened, makes this statement. I'm going to just show the quotes because I don't want to bother to make this longer than it needs to be. She specifically says in a 6-minute long video that she could not verify whether the security guard who approached them was hired by Roan, didn't know whether Roan had sent him to confront her and her daughter, but insisted that she was 100% sure he didn't work for the hotel. So Jorginho said that Chappell Roan didn't say anything. Jorginho did not indicate that Chappell Roan did anything. He just suggested it. And now Catherine Harding, who was there and is the mom in the situation, says, I don't know if Chappell Roan did anything. The only thing that she clarifies is he definitely didn't work for the hotel. Did she send him to do it? Again, I don't know. Look, I would like to hope not, but at the same time, I think that you have a responsibility when you are a celebrity to make sure, I guess, that the people who work for you and act on your behalf are acting on your behalf. Okay? Okay. So Chappell Roan says, that's not my security. That's not my personal security. And Catherine Harding says, well, it wasn't the hotel security. So therefore, it was probably your security. And I don't know if you said anything to him or did anything or saw us, but you clearly have responsibility here because it was clearly your security. And the people who are working for you acting on your behalf, they're acting on your behalf. Whatever, dude. Whatever. Now, this is where shit just got ridiculous, as if it wasn't already kind of ridiculous. Because if you would see, all the responses to Chappell were extremely negative at this point. She was getting tons of negative responses, even though neither of the people involved, save for the daughter, I guess, said that she did anything or saw her do anything. They just assumed that that was her security guard. And because it's Chappell Roan, they assumed that she had something to do with him going over there and being rude to them. Chappell Roan apologized. Chappell Roan was very, very diplomatic about it. Okay, this is where things got extra ridiculous. The mayor of Rio de Janeiro, who apparently had just become mayor like a couple days before because the then mayor stepped down to run for governor of the province. My Brazilian friends, let me know if this is true. The mayor of Rio de Janeiro, in one of his first acts as mayor, says, "This is not acceptable. Shakira would never do this. She is never invited again to Todo Mundo no Rio." And people were like, "Oh, this is crazy. He just said you're banned from attending this festival." Mind you, Todo Mundo no Rio has never had Chappell Roan on. Chappell Roan probably has no idea what Todo Mundo no Rio is. No Rio is. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get my Portuguese pronunciation somewhere close. And she was there for Lollapalooza. Mayor stepped in, "I'm banning her from this festival." This is the type of politics we're doing in Brazil. And everybody was eating it up. "Oh, she really messed up now. She really messed up with the Brazilians," which I have to make a side tangent. I understand that Brazilian fan culture is very intense. Brazilian people can be very passionate about different artists and celebrities and whatever. Obviously, they were very passionate on behalf of like Jorginho, who currently plays for Flamengo, which is a gigantic club in Brazil, because they all went and attacked Chappell Roan as well. That being said, Brazilians are not animals. Brazilian people are not a pack of wild animals. I mean, they're animals insofar as they're humans, so we're all animals, right? Brazilians are not these indolent savages that will rip her to shreds because a bunch of them apparently don't like her because she might have done something rude to a person in Brazil, to a Brazilian person's child. The way people were talking about this, though, it was just like, "Oh, she's banned from Brazil. She'll never be able to go back to Brazil again." Mind you, a bunch of Brazilian people were like not bothered at all by this, because they're human beings, and there are a lot of different Brazilians with a lot of different opinions. So that was his response. And now the cherry on top of the cake, on top of the sundae. The security guard made a statement. And what I'm gonna do is show you the full statement that he made. I just think that there's like a lot to unpack here. The security guard made a statement. This is what he said, and Pop Crave shared it alongside a picture of the security guard shirtless with his muscles showing. Okay, I guess this is important context. He said, "I do not normally address online rumors, but the accusations currently circulating are false and constitute defamation. I take full responsibility for the interactions on March 21st. I was at the hotel on behalf of another individual, and I was not part of the personal security team of Chappell Roan. The actions I took were not on behalf of Chappell Roan, her personal security team, her management, or any other individuals. I made a judgment call based on information we obtained from the hotel, events I had witnessed in the days prior, and the heightened overall security risk of our location. My sole interaction with the mother was calm and with good intentions, and the outcome of the encounter is regretful." Okay? I just think it's so ironic on so many levels, right? Because first of all, people are making this out to be like, we're making this campaign against rich white people who think that they can bully people. And at no point thought to themselves, "Hey, was this rich white mom bullying Chappell Roan or bullying the security guard?" We have all this smoke, right? All this intelligence to know that white women exaggerate and white women can be Karens, and when they don't get what they want, they can make things up and make themselves out to be the victim, right? Only when talking about Chappell Roan. And nobody, and this is not even to say that this is exactly what happened, because maybe the security guard is not recognizing that he was more hostile than he thought he was. But nobody thought to themselves, "Hey, maybe Catherine Harding was actually not receiving any disrespect, nor was her daughter. And maybe she just made this out to be a really big deal to lash out at the security guard and at the celebrity because maybe she's acting like a Karen." This person can't be a Karen, but Chappell Roan, Karen, absolutely a Karen. Okay, I see the logic. Moreover, right? So he says he didn't act on behalf of Chappell Roan, and I'm not part of her personal security team. So Jorginho, the person who made the accusation, says he didn't see Chappell Roan do anything, and he doesn't know if it's Chappell Roan's security guard. Then Catherine Harding, the person who was actually there, the mom, said she doesn't know if it was Chappell Roan doing anything. She doesn't know if Chappell Roan saw them. She just assumes that that's Chappell Roan's security guard because it's not the hotel security. And now the security guard himself is saying, "I was not Chappell Roan's security guard, and Chappell Roan didn't tell me to do anything." So nobody in this story said that Chappell Roan did anything. Nobody in this story said Chappell Roan told the security guard anything. And on top of that, we get clarification on whether or not the security guard was part of the hotel security instead. He wasn't. He was part of a security detail on behalf of another individual and made a judgment call based on information from the hotel. There were a lot of celebrities involved. Some people have found information saying that he was working for Lollapalooza as part of a security detail representing multiple of the artists, or part of the security detail covering the artist as part of Lollapalooza in Brazil. That explains what he's doing. And nobody has a counter evidence against it. Nobody does. And on top of that, he says, yeah, I was calm and with good intentions. It's sad that this is how it was taken. Also, the accusations are false and constitute defamation. So that should squash it, right? Maverick Gouda just said, so that should squash it, right? So that should just do it. Nobody involved said that Chappell Roan, even from the beginning, did anything. Two people assumed that Chappell Roan had something to do with it, but had no evidence of it. And then the person who actually did the thing said, yeah, I did a thing. Chappell Roan had nothing to do with it. So this is an account on TikTok named Is He the Right Word? And I do not intend to single this person out as the sole problem here. We're going to show you, as we've already shown you, that this is a lot of people. When this happened, this was the TikTok that she made. Chappell Roan yelling at a child is a failure of professional conduct. What? Chappell Roan yelling at a child. Didn't even say that the security guard yelled at the child. Do you understand? Jorginho didn't even say, I wasn't there, but I swear to God, the security guard yelled at the child. Nor did he say Chappell Roan did anything. Catherine Harding said, yeah, Chappell Roan didn't do anything. The security guard was using terms like you're aggressive. But Is He the Right Word on TikTok, with this TikTok with 1.4 million views, says Chappell Roan yelling at a child is a failure of professional conduct. Now, I'm not going to show you that TikTok. What I'm going to show you is the TikTok that she published after all these details came out 1 day ago, called Chappell Roan is facing the consequences of her own behavior. Now, I won't bother you with all 11 minutes and 45 seconds of this. I won't bother you with all that. But I want to just show you where this crowd is at.
So this situation is getting worse, not better for Chappell Roan right now.
Hot take, but let's go with it. So as you can see, she's citing the Daily Mail here, and we're going to get into this in a second. The Daily Mail is a far-right rag. You know, Wikipedia doesn't allow you to cite the Daily Mail because of how often it is inaccurate and how salacious it is. This is what we're citing.
The Daily Mail recently reported that the security guard was, in fact, an artist security guard and not a security guard for the hotel, who was hired either by Chappell Roan, but people are saying perhaps by Lollapalooza to protect her personally. So she was obviously lying about that, which I said in my last video. And also there's a video that's going very viral that's essentially showing that Chappell Roan, her grandfather, was extremely wealthy, a multimillionaire who owned golf courses and lots of land, and her whole idea of being this sort of like relatable thrift.
Where are we going now? What happened? So obviously Chappell Roan hired the guy because it's obvious, because he was there to represent an artist, and that obviously means Chappell Roan probably hired him. In other news, Chappell Roan is probably rich. In other news, Chappell Roan probably had a rich granddaddy. This is what the Daily Mail is saying, by the way. And so we're going to get into the rich thing. But I just want to point out, like, this Daily Mail citation, and I think she mentions the Daily Mail.
This is not a target of a smear campaign. This is the simple consequences of her own behavior.
So let me pull up to you, just to give you a sense of like what the Daily Mail is doing right now and why this is extended into having this life, because a lot of it is the Daily Mail's fault. So I'm just going to show you the Daily Mail's recent articles about Chappell Roan. So Squirrels in My Kool-Aid asks if we know that this user is a real person because TikTok has an issue with AI-generated Black people posting videos formatted like this. I can tell you with 100% certainty that this is a real person. I used to watch this person's content a little bit because they had a bunch of videos about Taylor Swift. And I was like, you know, sometimes you watch a little bit of pop culture discourse and gossip, trying to get the full story. And she had these like fairly detailed explanations of like Taylor Swift's previous scandals. And I was like, oh, this is kind of well put together. Obviously, it's kind of lighthearted. It's not like rigorous journalism. It's not like the kind of thing that I would cite in an essay, but it was enjoyable and kind of informative content about Taylor Swift. And she has many videos, okay? And she's in the comment sections responding to people. I have no doubt that this is a real person. And again, a lot of the people doing this are real people. We're going to talk about what kind of people they are as we go on. But just to give you a sense of the Daily Mail that she is citing, I don't think I have to explain to you how wretched the Daily Mail is. This is what they've been doing, okay? So since the 22nd of March, actually since the 21st of March, when this first story broke, Chappell Roan accused of leaving Jude Law's 11-year-old daughter in tears and using security guard to threaten her. Okay, Chappell Roan thanks her security. This one cracked me up because I heard this content creator I've just talked about using this same point. She thanked her security. Chappell Roan thanks her security during her Lollapalooza Brazil show hours after her team were accused of threatening Jude Law's daughter, 11, and leaving her in tears. So there's no... So what she said was, thank you to my team, my musicians, to everybody involved, my security. The thing that every artist says in every concert ever. Chappell Roan thanking her security hours after the accusation came out. So it really makes you think, no, that's not evidence of anything. Okay, we can't thank security. By the way, we also have evidence that that's not her security. Very compelling evidence. But anyway, Chappell Roan apologizes to Jude Law's daughter as she insists she did not ask for security guard to approach her and says, I do not hate fans of my music or children. Jude Law's ex thanks Louis Capaldi for his kindness. Chappell Roan now banned from Brazilian concert after her security was accused of leaving Jude Law's tween daughter in tears. Jude Law's ex hits back at Chappell Roan's denials. This is when the Catherine Harding thing came out. Iris Law makes low-key appearance as she steps out after Chappell Roan was accused of leaving her sister in tears. Chappell Roan is urged to be more like Taylor Swift after her many outbursts, as fans note how kind the billionaire still is to her loyal supporters after 2 decades in the industry. So this is the publication. Anyway, Chappell Roan calls fans weird and crazy and says, I don't give a fuck if you think it's selfish of me to say no to a photo, as outspoken 2024 video trends after hotel drama. You know, aside from the fact that it's obviously making this look like it's related to the story and then using this long title to like bury the lead on it, we will get to in a second what that video was. Chappell Roan's mental health battles. Luxury hotel at the center of Chappell Roan's drama seems to side with Jude Law's daughter. Chappell Roan under scrutiny. Hollywood turns on Chappell. Do you understand what's happening here? Far-right gossip rag making content about Chappell Roan over and over and over and over and over again. And this is what content creators on TikTok are running with, right? Let's get back to that second part. In particular, the accusation was made after assuming against the evidence presented that Chappell Roan's security was involved, her personal security, and that she made them do this. The content creator said, but anyway, so now there's rumors coming out that her grandfather was rich. And the reason that this is important to these folks is because Chappell Roan played poor. Chappell Roan acted like she was poor, acted like she was working class. She said that she had to work day jobs, but in actuality, Chappell Roan was rich the whole time. We're going to get into exactly what this is, but I want to go back to one of the accounts that we talked about at the beginning, because their TikTok was very important in this discourse. It was central in this discourse, in fact. Received over 12 million views on Twitter. Shared by this account, Lemonade Carter, Beyonce, Taylor, Rihanna, 770 followers. This has 59K likes. Oh wow, Chappell might come from more money than any other pop girl. We're talking about an industry with Gracie Abrams in it. But let's check this out, just to give you a feel for what these accusations look like and what kind of rhetoric is being used.
Did you guys know that Little Miss I Don't Want to Be Famous went to Grammys camp in 2014? It's $3,000 a week, and it's literally what she keeps referring to as summer camp, where she met all of her industry friends.
So first and foremost, Grammy camp is 1 week. Let me just keep showing you the TikTok, because if I don't, I'm going to have to pause and jump in and out of this tab over and over again.
You met him at summer camp?
Yes.
Like summer camp?
Like art camp. Yeah.
When did you go to the summer camp? Was it?
Yeah, like 2015.
In New York City, I went to Grammy camp, worked with some really amazing, talented kids.
This is your hard evidence that she didn't work at this summer camp. She only went to this Grammys camp. Okay, good journal.
A few moments later.
The Grammys.
Now, how did we get here? We were just talking about the Grammys camp thing, but like, okay, you guys got all the evidence you needed. Let's move on.
Later.
The Grammys.
Now she's saying, fuck the Grammys. Wow, how could she say that?
Talent show for rich people. I hope they hear this.
Yeah, fuck the Grammys. Submits work 8 times.
So this is what we're talking about, right? This is the rigorous journalism we're talking about. So we got 5 seconds about the Grammy camp thing. And then, she can't actually say fuck the Grammys and like 5-7 years later, because she actually submits her music to the Grammys. So there you go. Okay.
Thank you to my fellow nominees, and above all, my Papa Chappell, who I named myself after.
Her papa Chappell, who owned an insurance company and was a multimillionaire.
So this is the richest thing. This is the money thing. Let's rewind a little bit.
Her papa Chappell, who owned an insurance company and was a multimillionaire and owned an absolutely massive golf course. When I say massive, I mean genuinely massive. His obituary states that he lived on and owned the golf course. And looking at the Country Club Golf Course's website on the Wayback Machine, I found an interesting page about real estate. So he owned not only this massive Country Club golf course thing, but also all these houses, these $500,000 houses, 20 fucking of them, that he sold to people, I guess, to live on this giant, rich Missouri compound. There's a video of Chappell first signing her record deal, and the same grandfather is in the background, and I just find it hilarious that she loves going on about how she named herself after him, and she's this, like, feminist, lesbian icon, but her entire thing is based around her extremely rich grandfather.
So the accusation being made here is that she can't actually be a feminist because her granddad was rich. I gave you more credence by being like, the argument was that because she said she was working class and had jobs and worked at summer camp, that she's pretending to be poor. By the way, find me any evidence of Chappell Roan saying, I grew up poor. There's one moment where she says she grew up in a trailer park briefly, and that was part of what inspired her cover art for her album. People of all class distinctions live in trailer parks. Like a lot of middle class people live periodically in trailer parks. Some of them are very nice. I don't understand why. Anyway, the accusation being made here is she can't be a lesbian or a feminist because she's rich from old time. Like her grandfather's rich.
The meaning of my name is really important. It's my grandpa Chappell. He died September 22nd of 2016. And it feels good to know that, like, we got so successful. He's I feel like he's just like clapping from heaven right now.
I mean, it's just her saying, I love my granddad. And the context of how it's being presented is, look at this evil witch loving her granddad while also being gay and having feminism and stuff. So that's enough of that TikTok. She did say she grew up poor. The same TikTok creator has it in one of her videos. I will look through each and every single one of those clips. If I find a clip of this, you know what? We're going to watch the rest of this because this person says that she did grow up poor and it's in one of the other TikToks.
You might have heard of him. Favorite sad.
And their house, like conservative representative in Missouri who advocates.
Now they're saying, oh, she has an uncle who's a conservative. So she can't be gay. She can't be an activist or whatever.
To like a mobile vet hospital. And then they bought a $760,000 brick and mortar vet hospital.
So this is just now they're saying like her mom and dad, her mom's a veterinarian who owns a veterinary hospital or who runs a veterinary hospital.
In 2014, when Chappell was going to Grammy camp.
Because so experience under my belt, and like most people, I had a difficult time finding a job in the pandemic and could not afford health insurance.
I had management before I was signed.
I think this is what this person in my chat just said, is like her saying that she grew up poor. So that wouldn't be accurate because she was living in LA and says specifically after the pandemic, she had a hard time finding jobs and couldn't afford health insurance. So that is not her saying she grew up poor.
I had management before I was signed through acting.
She was poor, but her family could afford golf courses, jets, $1 million vet hospital. You said 760,000. Then they're running it as a business. This is not an asset.
You were acting.
I was
jets. We're going to get into all of this, by the way.
Before all of this, actress, whatever.
So that gives you the sense of like the in-depth research that folks, she has a verbatim, a clip of Chappell Roan saying, I grew up poor.
Where did she say she grew up poor?
Like, I've been poor.
I guess her team's tried to scrub it from the internet, but she still has interviews where she literally said she grew up in a trailer park.
I've been poor. So I know that I can be happy and poor.
Yeah.
Let's just say Chappell Roan said verbatim, I grew up poor. This all started with her being accused of sicking her security detail at people. And none of that evidence panned out. And now we're going, well, you know what? She's actually a Nepo baby and she lies about being poor. So the credence of this accusation on its face is ridiculous. What I think you guys are referring to, if I recall correctly, is that she said she experienced being poor in Los Angeles when she had already left, was living by herself in Los Angeles and trying to make it in music after the pandemic. That's what I think you're referring to.
I've been poor. So I know that I can be happy and poor.
Yeah.
I don't think you actually have a clip of her saying I grew up poor. Let's just assume that you do. What in the hell does this have to do with her politics? What in the hell does this have to do with her activism? What in the hell does this have to do with her music? Now, let's get into the details of what these accusations are. Is Chappell Roan actually rich? I can't believe we're getting here, but we're getting here. So I had to dig up research about this because a lot of people were curious. First and foremost, remember when they said, oh, Grammy Camp, how could they have afforded to send her to Grammy Camp, which is $3,000 a week? Grammy Camp was 8 days. $3,000 a week, technically, but it was 1 week. And in order to get the funds for it, we have newspaper clips showing that she did a benefit concert to raise money. There was an admission, there were donations accepted, and an auction of donated items. So I guess in this conspiracy, like what this was they were hoodwinking people in the neighborhood, pretending that they were poor in order for people to raise money so they could send her to this. Okay, whatever, fine. Now, who is this rich person grandfather? Dennis K. Chappell, right, had an inheritance split between 6 kids and 16 grandchildren. And these are the assets, and this is the business that he was doing, okay? He was one of the partners of an insurance agency. He was an accomplished pilot and a principal owner, not the only owner, a principal owner of Silo Ridge Golf and Country Club in Boulevard, Missouri. We're really doing this, guys. Here's an article from Celebrity Net Worth of somebody who talks about celebrities' money for a living. They go into the details of all the claims. Dennis Chappell was a successful businessman. They don't deny that. He was a co-founder of an insurance company. We don't deny that. It is not a massive conglomerate. It's owned by a larger company called the Sunstar Group, but according to PJC's own website, this group as a whole is only the 45th largest insurance agency of the US. So it's a small part of the 45th largest insurance agency in the US, and he was one of the co-founders of it. That's the insurance mogul that her Shakira's grandparents could never. Oh, and thank you for the donations, by the way, Old Grease. Story time, my dad owned his home, middle class, RIP, and I love him, but his scolding slowly grew up through to yelling at me for up to 4 hours per session. Actually, I left home after my first job, stopped talking to him for years. So just because his death is now funding these super chats, my family tree doesn't mean that I was never living on welfare, going to the food bank, etc. I don't know her history, but that's mine. So Old Grease is making this really important point that a lot of people have rich family members and don't see a sense of it, either because they were estranged from those family members, they choose to be, or the family member chooses to be, etc. But we're just going to take it that this guy, whatever money he had, it went to Chappell Roan. Obviously, she had a good relationship with him. So yeah, he had a part of a small piece of the 45th largest insurance agency in the US. The person says her grandfather didn't make generational wealth from his insurance business. It's likely he and his partner sold for a small fortune, perhaps $10 to $20 million, which would have been split several ways before being split in half by taxes. There are signs he was successful and well off. The biggest sign was that he owned a country club. This is where the videos get especially cinematic. He was indeed a part owner and one of the original developers of a country club in Boulevard, Missouri called Silo Ridge Golf and Country Club. The videos breathlessly and factlessly claim that this is an extremely upscale country club which is worth hundreds of millions of dollars, perhaps billions. Here's the reality. Silo Ridge is not Augusta National. It's a regional club in Boulevard, Missouri with 300 members according to its website, paying an average of $2,600 per year in membership fees. That's $780,000 per year in member fees. Golf courses are less valuable than you might assume. They cost a fortune to maintain, and in the Midwest, they lose all revenue for the entire winter, unless you know anybody who plays golf in the winter. So you basically have 8 months if you're lucky to make money. Many regional courses lose money or barely break even. If they were ever put up for sale, Silo Ridge might be listed for $3 million. That would be entirely the value of the land. Not $300 million, not $30 million, $3 million. Okay? There's around a dozen golf courses in Missouri for sale right now, and they're currently listed for $1 to $3 million. Now the real estate. I can't believe we're doing this, guys. The next claim is that Dennis made a fortune selling all the homes around Silo Ridge. There are indeed around 24 homes around Silo Ridge. As you can see in the screenshot above, developing and selling these surely brought in tens of millions of dollars, right? According to Zillow, these homes currently range in value from $200,000 to $450,000. Currently. If Dennis owned them personally and they were sold off in the 1990s, right after they were built, what would they have been worth at the time? $50,000 a piece, maybe $100,000 at most. So we're talking a total of around $2 million in theoretical home sale revenue. In all likelihood, the surrounding area was pre-sold by Dennis and his partners to a developer for a much smaller sum, and the developer then sold off the homes one by one. That's how real estate selling works. He didn't somehow own all these houses and then sell them all for $1 million each in the 90s. He probably had a deal with his other co-partners owning part of that land, sold it off to a developer for probably less than $1 million. And then that developer developed homes, because that's what developers do. And then the developers sold them off one by one. Claim number 4, that wealth flowed directly to Chappell Roan. Even if we grant for the sake of argument that Dennis Chappell was affluent, the next claim is that his wealth flowed directly and generously to his granddaughter in a way that materially shaped her pop career. Dennis died in 2016. According to his obituary, he was survived by 6 children and 16 grandchildren. That's 22 heirs. Even if he died with an estate worth $5 million, which according to my research feels high, that would equate to $200,000 per person if the money was inherited evenly by his 22 heirs. So with several great leaps, what we got was Chappell Roan got $200,000 maybe. And if anybody knows people who have had family members who have died and left estates to them or left, stuff to them, a lot of times that money goes into accounts, it's for savings, it's for emergencies. So in this example where, yeah, she did benefit a lot from her wealthy grandfather, it's nowhere near one of the richest pop girls in the industry because, for instance, J.J. Abrams' net worth is allegedly $300 million. His films have grossed over $4 billion worldwide. Sorry to Gracie Abrams, but it's just an example, and it's not the only one. And yeah, as Danae is pointing out in the Twitch chat, queer people often grow estranged from their conservative relatives. Now, I'm not saying that in this point because Chappell's, literally said, like, I named myself after him. She clearly has a loving relationship and had one with her grandpa. So that's why I'm not citing that. But regardless, the idea that she inherited this massive fortune is it's poppycock, right? It's useless. And by the way, just as a cherry on top, we have Olivia Rodrigo herself saying that she saw Chappell Roan working at a donut shop in LA. Oh my God, this was exhausting. This was exhausting. I've heard people say that her grandfather was one of the richest people in Missouri. Do you understand that there are billionaires in Missouri? This is a guy that maybe had 5 million, maybe, if he did really well. But people don't know how money works. So this is what happens because people don't actually know how money works. And that's fine. And none of this had to be discussed. Dearest Luna says, for instance, if Chappell was close with her grandpa, we don't know if he became estranged from her after she came out or what that looked like, because as far as I know, she didn't always identify as a lesbian. It was a more recent realization that I believe she talked about. Yeah, it's obviously quite important too. We don't know exactly what the details of that relationship is, much less what exactly she would have inherited. And so the point, we didn't have to talk about Chappell Roan's money. We didn't have to be counting her money. Nobody said that Chappell Roan was a poor girl and then suddenly got rich off of music. We don't have any evidence, though some people are saying that there's evidence that Chappell Roan says she was poor.
I've been poor.
We just know that she periodically lived in a trailer park for a second and that she didn't have money for a period of time after the pandemic when she was by herself in Los Angeles and trying to make it in music. And we have evidence of Olivia Rodrigo saying she was working at a donut shop in LA. I'm exhausted, but we have so much more to talk about because we barely have even gotten into the politics of it. We barely have even touched on the politics of it. And I realized that there's also a factor in this that we haven't discussed, for instance, like the fact that she apparently hates her fans, right? Oh my gosh, I underestimated how big this thing was going to be. So one of the articles that, if you remember from the Daily Mail, was saying, oh, this video of her has been revisited in the wake of her doing this, showing how much that she's hostile towards her fans. And this is the charge that people like, the content creator I showed earlier are also standing by. Well, she's hateful towards her fans. She doesn't appreciate her fans. She doesn't appreciate fame. This is the central TikTok at the center of that discourse, okay? A lot of you might remember this one.
If you saw a random woman on the street, would you yell at her from the car window? Would you harass her in public? Would you go up to a random lady and say, "Can I get a photo with you?" Would you be offended if she says no to your time because she has her own time? Would you stalk her family? Would you follow her around? I'm a random bitch. You're a random bitch. Just think about that for a second. I don't care that this crazy type of behavior comes along with the job, the career field I've chosen. That does not make it okay. That doesn't make it normal. It doesn't mean I want it. It doesn't mean that I like it. I don't give a if you think it's selfish of me to say no for a photo or for your time or for a hug. It's weird how people think that you know a person just because you see them online or you listen to the art they make.
None of this is her saying like she hates her fans. None of this is saying that she always turns her fans down, that she drop kicks her fans whenever they ask her for a photo. It's her saying, if I say no, be okay with that. Don't yell at me. Don't run across to me. Don't go screaming my name in the street when you see me. You can nitpick her articulation, her delivery of it, but she's right. As people are saying in the chat, she's right. And universally, people would look at what she said and say, she's right. It's not a controversial thing to say at all. And the reason why I know it's not controversial, the way that she feels about paparazzi, in terms of her views of paparazzi and the way fans talk to her, is because I see how y'all do it with dudes. I'm going to show you an example, a good TikTok that was made that really illustrates just how much this is fueled by misogyny and lesbophobia. Frankly, okay? Now that we're all the way here, I'm just going to start using big words like that. Because when it was these situations, y'all weren't so mad.
Saying you don't think I'm a real fucking guy.
That's what shit is gonna get. This is Tyler the Creator, Justin Bieber, telling people off. You chose that life when you chose that life when you chose fame. When Tyler the Creator said that shit to the paparazzi and he was in his car, right? But her doing this, she's exhausting. Why even is she famous? She used to be so nice. What happened? I always been her hater. She chose fame. And then Tobey Maguire. I was there when this Tobey Maguire shit happened. You guys were all on him for this. You loved this. He's right though. So we know very well that a lot of this is fueled by misogyny. We know very well that this is just a classic case, one of many, of people doing a hate campaign against women for expressing boundaries and for trying to defend themselves in ways that when men do it, they get comments like this. He didn't sign up to be harassed. That's not an excuse to harass them. I don't blame him. Just because you're famous doesn't mean you should have to put up with constant harassment. He's a human too. You guys talk about this with Tobey Maguire, but when it's Chappell Roan that does it, you hate it. When it's Chappell Roan that does it, she doesn't deserve fame. But Chappell Roan, rich girl, Chappell Roan hates her fans, Chappell Roan, da-da-da. I found the health insurance part to be particularly interesting because if you remember, when Chappell Roan was talking about not having health insurance, there was context. There was context around it, right? Not only that was her when she was in Los Angeles by herself and she had been dropped by her label. And so she was not employed by a label and she was working day jobs and couldn't afford health insurance. And so it was devastating to feel betrayed by the system. And when she did that, she did it in the context of what? When she was on the Grammy stage, you remember that clip? Oh, she was saying, fuck the Grammys, but then she was on the Grammy stage, right? That same clip, if you play it out longer, shows Chappell Roan saying, but if I get there, I'll probably do like a protest or something. And what did she do? When she was on the Grammy stage, she said that artists deserve to have healthcare covered by their labels. Labels, we got you, but do you got us? And this is where we have to start talking about the politics. Finally, after wading through all that nonsense, we can talk about what really matters here. Because yes, this is a classic misogynistic hate campaign. Yes, there's lesbophobia there. Yes, there's obvious double standards with somebody like Tobey Maguire, with somebody like Justin Bieber and how they respond to paparazzi versus how Chappell Roan does. But these folks who are making these accusations are oftentimes the same ones who are defending other celebrities from unfair hit pieces. That Is He the Right Word person, right? Has made videos about Olivia Rodrigo and how unfair the industry was to her. A lot of these folks are liberals or left-leaning. A lot of them would find themselves to be very much, pro-gay, pro-trans even, or pro-women in a lot of contexts. But with Chappell Roan, the story is different. And that's why we have to talk about the politics, because Chappell Roan is somebody who has done labor activism. What she did here is activism advocating on behalf of workers. And that's where shit starts to get sticky. It's not just that Chappell Roan is a woman and that she's gay. It's not just that people are misogynistic against women for doing the same things that men do. It's the fact that a lot of these people that we're seeing act like this. It's so bizarre because it's like you wouldn't act like this about other women celebrities. Why is it Chappell Roan? Why is Chappell Roan the one who gets this treatment? And so that's when we have to talk about something that happened a long time ago. Remember 2024? Remember the cursed year of 2024? You remember when that previous Chappell Roan hate campaign was happening around the time of the election?
I have encouraged people to use critical thinking skills, learn about what they're voting for, learn about who they're voting for, and ask questions. And it's being completely taken out of context.
So this is what people haven't forgiven. People with names like Reputation on Twitter. Imagine being stupid. Imagínate ser estúpida. This person says that she's aligned with Javier Milei. I don't even know what's going on here, to be honest with you. Spanish language stan Twitter is just a different world. The fact is, Chappell Roan has never been the most amazing principled activist, but she has multiple times made left-wing activism that is critical of the Democratic Party. And in particular, she has multiple times espoused pro-Palestinian stances and raised money for people in Gaza. And that is the difference between her and Taylor Swift. Olivia Rodrigo has done some pro-Palestine things, but Chappell Roan has been confrontational. So let's talk about it. It all started in 2024. This was reported on September 10th. In 2024, she turned down an invite from the White House. She turned down an invite from Joe Biden for Pride Month. She considered going and considered reading poetry by Palestinian women in protest of the genocide in Gaza, but her publicist kind of urged her against it, so she decided against it. And it all started here. So this is the article that I'm talking about. Because It's one thing to say a nice thing about Palestinian people. It's one thing to make some broadly left-wing political stances. It's another thing to turn down the DNC. It's another thing to criticize Democrats and to criticize the Democratic Party. And it is because Chappell Roan did that Chappell Roan incurred on herself a hate campaign. I'm sure you remember the details of the many vigorous anti-Chappell Roan comments made when she said that she wasn't endorsing Kamala Harris, but that she was voting for her. I'm sure you remember that. And let me see if I can dig something up really quickly. So I'm in the comment section of the Is He the Right Word person. And this is the kind of energy people are on. The security guard has released a statement taking full accountability for the situation. Fall guy. Talking about the Grammy camp. They're talking about her summer camp. They're showing mean pictures of her dressed up as a witch. Didn't he literally come out and say he didn't work for her? It doesn't matter at this point. She built her fandom on a lie. Y'all owe her an apology. The security guard has since spoken out. He was not a security guard for Chappell, but was there for another artist. We don't owe her shit. She made one song and it was so mid. I mean, it's just why does your dislike of her... Anyway, you see the kind of misogyny that's at play here, right? If you don't want to be recognized by the public, don't go out in public. Genuine things people are genuinely saying in the year of our Lord 2026. I honestly don't think she has a PR person. Remember her vids on the election and mispronouncing Kamala's name? She might have one who she simply refuses to listen to and makes her blood pressure rise every day. So a lot of this not only goes back to people just finding somebody that they hate, there are specific reasons why they hate this person and not other women and not other queer women. And as Narita Zaraki says on YouTube, I fear liberals have grown even weirder about Kamala and the Dems in the past year, honestly. You're on to exactly what the point is. So I'm going to show you a clip now of another TikTok, and we're going to get into exactly sort of the politics at play. Also, yeah, wear masks in public. Shout out to Old Grease. So this is a TikTok that was shared on Twitter. She was telling the truth about her. 20K likes. Quick clip from this TikTok.
I'm going to keep this one really quick. But basically, if your name rhymes with Snapple, I want to remind you that media record all of our interviews. We have little recorders. They're on our phones. We keep the interviews. So when I tell you that a lot of my colleagues pass around their interviews with you, Snapple, hear me, Schmaden? That should come as a little bit of a warning because you fat shame, you are unkind, you belittle certain races, certain religions.
I'm just going to pause it right there. You belittle certain races and certain religions. Obviously, she hasn't substantiated any of what this is. She's saying, oh, I hear things about you from other people in the industry. Now, let me show you who this person is, Wong Win. This is somebody named Bryce Gruber. And if you thought it was interesting that she said certain races, certain religions, you will find this next detail interesting. This is a news article of her being left stunned after anti-Israel protesters shut down the road near her children's upstate New York elementary school and shouted at the kids that their parents were complicit in genocide and baby killers. So this is her in an article talking about how anti-Israel protesters were mean to her, right? And this is a post from TikTok of one of Bryce Gruber's takes on the current genocide. 1, don't start a war and then hide in hospitals and schools. 2, if you're calling for a ceasefire, you better direct that energy at Hamas. We had one on October 6th. Every offer the Jews give is rejected. Blatant misinformation, and then has the nerves to talk about other people not knowing anything about the Middle East because they've never been there. This is Hasbara. This is the Zionist propaganda that has been rapidly disseminating all over our social media feeds and all over our news screens for the past several years, spouting misinformation and smearing anybody who has the nerve to express solidarity with people from Palestine. And so now that certain races and religions, because we've seen Chappell Roan do activism on behalf of Palestinian people, we have no evidence to anything saying that she's been racist to anybody. But when we say now races and religions, now it makes sense what you might have been referring to. So all of this comes back to when she said she was voting for Kamala Harris, but refuses to endorse her because fuck Trump, but fuck some of the shit that's gone down in the Democratic Party. This was in September of 2024. There's no way I can stand behind some of the left's completely transphobic and completely genocidal views. So yeah, there are huge problems on both. You know what is right and wrong, and so do I. Fuck Trump for fucking real, but fuck some of the shit that has gone down in the Democratic Party that has failed people like me and you, and more so Palestine, and more so every marginalized community in the world. When I tell you that ever since then, this has been taken so out of context by people who have defended this genocide and defended the Democratic Party's perpetuation of it, to say that she was doing a both sides thing, even though she flat out said she was going to vote for Kamala Harris. And the mispronunciation of Kamala Harris's name that she did in that video is supposed to be this smoking gun that proves that actually it's just because she's racist, even though I'm almost positive I've heard people of every fucking ethnic group mispronounce Kamala Harris's name at one point or another. It's complete misdirection and smearing of her making a valid point, which is that trans people deserve rights and genocide is bad. And while I can critique certain aspects of how she went about it, learn how to pronounce Kamala Harris's name. That would be a good idea, right? I try to learn how to pronounce people's names when I say them. It's good practice. Also, the left, I wouldn't describe the Democratic Party as that. But this was her taking an active stance against this. And that's the part that they can't forgive. That's where something happens in their brains that forever associates the people that they hate right now, which is the left wing that is critiquing the Democratic Party, with Chappell Roan, who to them represents the exact problem. This privileged person pretending to be marginalized, pretending to care even though she's rich, pretending to care even though she's actually this really mean person, because we were the good people the whole time, the Democratic Party supporters. And I will show you more evidence to this, because I will show you the people doing this type of rhetoric. Remember how the Daily Mail, I had shown you that the Daily Mail was covering Chappell Roan all this time. One of the articles was written by Jacqueline Powers. I'll show you. What is going on? There's one where it literally says like written by Jacqueline Powers or whatever. Hold on a second. Chappell Roan, Jacqueline Powers. Here. Oh, it can't be found. It may have been moved or deleted. Oh, they deleted her article. Okay, well, the internet doesn't forget shit, bro. You deleted the article because people exposed that the writer is a Zionist, but we still have the evidence right here. Chappell Roan's diss of that crying 11-year-old fan actually revealed her dark truth, says Jacqueline Powers. And here's Jacqueline Powers on Instagram. Follows State of Israel, Zionist account, IDF, visit Israel, follow Team Israel, Israel War Room, Israel War Room. And this is not surprising at all, because the Daily Mail is a far-right anti-Palestinian rag, Zionist rag, okay? It hasn't covered anything that has gone on in Palestine with accuracy, and it continuously publishes articles depicting pro-Palestinian protesters as unhinged. Not surprising. And like just to this point, let's take a look at what YouTube looks like right now when you look up Chappell Roan. This dude named Atozi, I'll let you guess whether or not he has covered Palestine. The Chappell Roan situation is crazy. And this one's really interesting. Brett Cooper. You might know who Brett Cooper is. Brett Cooper is a far-right online commentator. Here's my take on Iran as a conservative. And here's other videos that Brett Cooper makes. Black actors call for man with Tourette's to be segregated. The left hates joy. Liberals are going to therapy over the Olympics. The lie women are being sold about divorce. Stop trying to make divorce happen. And of course, Chappell Roan is everything wrong with celebrity culture. Consistently, 90% of the content being made about how bad Chappell Roan is coming from people who either haven't said anything about Palestine, don't cover pro-Palestinian activism, or are people who are actively Zionist. It doesn't stop there. The left hates joy is a wild thing, because it's like, anyway. Here's another interesting tweet that I saw by somebody named Chris Evans, not Captain America on Twitter. So he's obviously chiming in, confused. If he wasn't employed by the hotel, and if he wasn't employed by Chappell Roan, who was paying him to be there? And this person responds, is it illegal to read? Because of course, if you saw the actual statement by the security guard, he said, I was there on behalf of another individual. But of course, for Chris Evans, it would not be convenient to actually read the full statement, because Chris Evans does not like Chappell Roan. This was from last summer. Fuck the woman in this GIF for telling her legion of fans that both sides are the same. I showed you what she said. An article in which she said she was voting for Kamala Harris, and she has critiques of the Democratic Party. But this was what Chris Evans had to say about her. And it's not surprising, because this is Chris Evans with Kamala Harris. Happy holidays from the vice president's house. And this is Chris Evans saying, I'm so glad they're going after the people with the real power, making fun of pro-Palestinian protesters, disrupting Kamala Harris's first book tour. Well, of course, everybody knows that when you're no longer in office, you never did the genocide that you did. So nobody can say anything about it, right? Not Captain America, that's for damn sure. In a way, he is Captain America, because this represents exactly what the American democratic establishment is about. It's never been about representing women's rights. It's never been about LGBTQ plus rights. It's never been about liberal values and humanitarian, egalitarian ideals, the way that this Democratic Party has told you. It has always been about power. It has always been about imperialism. You thought I stopped there? I did not stop there, because I wasn't going to make this point without having a lot of different people to look at. Remember that tweet that was showing the TikTok by that account, Joe Blessed, that ended up getting taken down, saying, wow, she might be one of the richest girls in the industry. It's from this same account that a year ago said, I do think Chappell Roan's familial connections to the Republican Party played a role in her suggesting both sides were equally as bad prior to the election. This about her uncle having a pink pony because he's Chappell Roan's uncle, and he's a Republican Missouri state representative. Mind you, Chappell Roan said she's voting for Kamala, she's pro-Palestine, she's pro-trans rights, and she's standing up for labor rights, but your uncle's conservative, so therefore, that's actually the thing. You don't actually have left-wing values. You actually are just a conservative in the disguise, which is so funny because every time I go online during the holidays, you guys are all here complaining about how you had to cut off your family members because they're Republicans, how you can't stand going to meet your family members for Thanksgiving dinner because somebody's going to say something racist. But now Chappell Roan actively advocating for left-wing causes with her platform, using her platform for activism. Well, she has a Republican uncle, so she must be Republican. Okay, bro. Okay. But going back to the point, one of the main accounts here disseminating this misinformation about her has been posting about her before, saying she was saying both sides were equally as bad during the election. Her both sides bad shtick at a critical moment right before the election was egregious. Remember when Bill Maher, famous liberal talking head who just got rewarded by some fucking institution I can't think of at the top of my name for excellence in comedy or some bullshit. You remember how Bill Maher has been this liberal activist, except he's been super pro-Israel the whole time? You remember how when she made those points during the election that Chappell Roan would be thrown off of a roof in Gaza? If you think it was repressive growing up queer in the Midwest, try the Mid-East. Yeah. For more on this, by the way, Big Joel's video about Bill Maher is really good. Bill Maher and autopsy. Yeah, so exactly what Olivia was saying, right? I have criticisms of Chappell, but none of these are them. This is all weird. That's the point I was trying to make to y'all at the beginning. There are ways that you can fairly criticize Chappell. But it's interesting that among all this hateful discourse about Chappell Roan, I have not once seen any of these accounts bring up the fact that she's a MAC ambassador and that MAC is Zionist. I have not once seen anybody bring that up when people are literally making things up. Her dad was one of the richest people in Missouri, making things up. She was paying $3,000 a week to go to Grammy's camp, several weeks, making things up. She sent her security guard to go attack people. But they won't say the actual factual things that you can criticize her for. The fact is that this is all a smear campaign that's not even interested in legitimately criticizing Chappell Roan and bringing up the legitimate criticisms of Chappell Roan's activism, investigating whether or not she could be doing more. It's all a Zionist critique of Chappell Roan. Even among the few people who are not Zionists or who are anti-Zionist that are supporting this narrative. The Bridget Bardot thing, she didn't know that Bridget Bardot was a piece of shit, and she immediately clarified that and apologized. So I wouldn't hold that against her. Call me IQ. So I'm going to conclude here by just making this very clear. It might not appear at first like this Chappell Roan hate is part of a typical right-wing smear campaign. This is my writing, by the way. Many of the folks taking her down appear as the liberals defending women celebrities of old. That's what makes this story remarkable. Because this is what's so bizarre about it. If it were just blazoning right-wingers who were supporting Trump that were doing this, people would just look at it like, oh, this is some goofy internet thing that the right wing is doing. The thing that is so bizarre in your head when you see this, right, audience member, is these people don't talk like this about other people. These people are supposed to be liberals. They're supposed to be left-wing. They're supposed to be pro-woman. But this is the whole point. That's what makes this story remarkable. It's a sign of the shift underlying American politics, one where the Democratic Party has been exposed as a right-wing, anti-trans, genocidal party. Gavin Newsom has just come out and said that he's a firm Zionist and is talking about being normal about gender. This is the candidate that all these folks are saying should definitely be the Democratic Party candidate in 2028. This another psy-op about this shit, because who the fuck wants that? Its remaining supporters, once smoothly associated with LGBTQ plus rights and left of center politics, are left with an obvious cognitive dissonance. How can you be the politically moral faction when you refuse to side with pro-Palestinian activists? That's where the Zionism comes to play. That's why it's really important to talk about this as a Zionist psy-op, because it wasn't even ever about Chappell Roan. It was about tamping down on people who are threatening the liberal Zionist framework. That's always what this was about. And just to hammer it home, remember how Casey Wasserman was the person that I had brought up. Casey Wasserman was the person who she left, the agency that she left. Well, Casey Wasserman's also a raging Zionist. He's donated millions to Friends of the IOF. He's made public solidarity statements with the settler colonial state, and he visited Israel very recently. This is a person who is a raging Zionist. And that's not some big coincidence. Guys, this was never about just Chappell Roan. And it's misogynistic and it's lesbophobic, but it was never just about hating lesbians or hating women. It's about hating this idea of that damned leftist who dares to say anything critical of the Democratic Party from a left-wing perspective. It was never about being rude to fans. The being rude to fans thing comes in because if you're in this person's position, right? Let's say you are a Democratic Party supporter, and because of that, you think that you're anti-racism, you're anti-misogyny, you're anti-homophobia. And all of a sudden, the news cycle keeps shifting. People keep illustrating how much this party is actually not for those values. And something as massive as October 7th happens. And the party that you're supposed to be standing by to be against bigotry is full-on war hawking for the destruction, the settler colonialist eradication of the Palestinian people. And you don't leave. You don't allow yourself to say, you know what, I don't actually like this. You don't go through that interrogative process in your head of saying, you know what part of this can I support and what can I not? Do I have to push other politicians? Do I have to work to expand my activism? You don't do any of that. Well, now you're just left with people every day yelling at you, reminding you of the fact that this exists, reminding you of the fact that this party that you support, supposedly because of your morals and your principles and your anti-bigotry, is committing human atrocities for the sake of extracting from colonized peoples. And you stay there, and now these people are your enemies. Now these people are your enemies. Now these people hate you. And you can't avoid them anywhere. They're protesting. They're chanting things at DNC rallies. They're destroying the framework that made you feel secure, that made you feel like you were a good person, by interrupting it with a criticism, by interrupting it with slogans about Palestinian solidarity. They're reminding you at every turn that this is not actually solidarity, that you're not actually a good person. You're not actually a good person. What do? What that is cognitive dissonance. You're saying you're pro-peace, but you're not. You're saying you're anti-bigotry, but you're not. You're saying you're against racism, you're not. You're saying you're LGBTQ plus focused, but you're supporting people who are actively throwing trans people under the bus. What that does is it makes you start to break psychically. It makes you start to have a psychological break, a consciousness break because of that cognitive dissonance. That's what cognitive dissonance does, right? It makes you start to break. It makes you start to do things that don't make any sense, to say things that don't make any sense. It makes you a person who supposedly has these values, who a few years ago would drag the Daily Mail because of how racist they were to Obama, would drag the Daily Mail because of how racist they were, because of how sensationalist they were. Never in a million years would you look at the Daily Mail, but now the Daily Mail is your best friend. Why? Because it's going after the same person you hate. And the factual basis for what Chappell Roan is doing, for this evilness of Chappell Roan, is very flimsy. It's very flimsy. It's maybe she's annoying. Maybe she could have done more with the kid. There's just very little supporting it. There's very little supporting the idea that you would say Chappell Roan yelled at a girl. Actually, there's nothing supporting it because nobody accused her of that. But it makes sense in your head because you don't like her. And you don't like her to this degree that is so visceral because she represents the exact people that are causing your psychological break in your mind. Since it's not your fault, and you can't take accountability and you're not doing anything wrong, and the world changed and you didn't change and you're not the problem, well, these entitled people on Twitter who dare to criticize the Democratic Party, who dare to protest at Kamala Harris rallies, they're mean girls. They're bullies. They're probably lying about being gay. They're lying about being woke. People who work for you are an extension of you. After several bits of evidence came out and showed that that's not a person who works for her. I'm just going to show you this again, just to be obvious about it, right? She's a creepy ass B-word, let's be honest. Chappell Roan is a dick. If she keeps it up, she's going to have to work at the Pink Pony Club. Look at these misogynistic images. Pathetic and insufferable. She's going to lose her entire career if she keeps this up. Making things up. I clocked Kaylee Rose as the mean girl who plays the victim immediately. Not only does her music and persona feel inauthentic, she used a literal genocide as a buzzword to gain more Gen Z fans. She disrespected a woman who was running for president and weirdly, after making her entire career about activism, immediately stopped being so vocal after the election. Is there evidence for any of this? No. But think about the wording. I clocked her as the mean girl who plays the victim immediately. It's not you looked at the evidence and that gave you a feeling. It's you had a feeling and then you came up with the evidence. She has always been a B word. And this is misogyny, right? It's just plain old misogyny, right? On one hand, you're saying she disrespected a woman who was running for president. And then on the next, you're saying she's always been a B word. What you're watching right now is actually something it's spiritual. to be honest with you. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. You're watching in real time a significant portion of people become more and more out of touch with reality. And you see this phenomenon happen with people every day, where because they can't reconcile something in their own life, they start losing more and more touch with reality. So I'll leave you with this, right? I'm going to leave you with this one TikTok. I think this person pretty much sums up the exact mechanism that takes place and the way that you should start seeing stuff like this from now on.
Piggyback on my video about Chappell Roan and Lotto, I've been trying to find words to explain this phenomenon that I've realized on the internet. Y'all are fucking weird as fuck. And y'all have been weird as fuck. But y'all are getting weirder. I've been seeing things on the internet lately that have really made me truly get to a point where I'm like, I dead ass have to just stop being on the internet. Like, it's to that point. Like, y'all really took it there. I realized that a lot of these think pieces, y'all call them think pieces, they don't be think pieces. They be feel pieces. Y'all bitches don't be thinking. Y'all just be talking because you feel a way about something. Like with the whole Lotto thing, I truly believe that 90% of y'all only had so much to say about Lotto because y'all was mad at the Brokey song and y'all never lived that shit down. That bitch said, y'all bitches gotta wait till your birthday to go out of town. That shit hurt y'all feeling so fucking bad that y'all couldn't wait to have an opportunity to pop some shit about that girl. Y'all start pulling shit out y'all ass. Oh, all of a sudden everybody cares about wedlock marriages and the sanctity of the institution of marriage and God and Jesus. No, you bitches are just mad because she called y'all Brokey that one time in that fucking song. Y'all ain't never get over it. Same thing with Chappell Roan. A lot of y'all are so fucking insecure that y'all put yourselves beneath celebrities. And the minute that they show y'all that they're normal human beings, y'all can't take it because y'all are putting these people on pedestals because y'all are fucking insecure weirdos. Not only that though, but then y'all have to justify your obsession with these people by being like, it's normal. That's just celebrity culture. That's just what it is. That's just how it goes. Like, this is what you signed up for. Trying to normalize your own obsession with another human being because you're insecure as fuck is weird. Like, y'all are getting weird. And then y'all sit on the internet. Y'all actually have conversations about these things as if it makes any fucking sense. But that's just how you feel because you're
So you see the point, right? The parasociality is something that can be positive if you are critical. If you take the time to let your opinions of celebrities, let your research about celebrities inform you about different social things. If you take the time to look at what Chappell Roan said and be like, wow, I actually don't know much about politics, but her saying this, makes me have to think, wow, what is the Democratic Party doing? When you're willing to criticize yourself, when you're willing to say, my bad, I shouldn't keep doing this thing. But the problem is there's a lot of people that just fundamentally are not ready to do that. And the world is literally falling apart around them, and they're pretending to act unbothered. They're pretending that they've got all of these think pieces on them, that they're so sophisticated about this shit. But what they really are is avoiding their own fear and avoiding their own self, avoiding the world that they're living in. Chappell Roan disrupts that. And so it doesn't matter if there's truth in their accusations. It doesn't matter what the evidence is. It doesn't matter that it's the Daily Mail. It doesn't matter that Jorginho never said. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's true because they feel like it's true. And at the end of the day, all we have is our own perception of the world. None of us have all this access to it. We only have our own perception of it. Earl Sweatshirt once said, at the end of the day, it's really just you and whatever you think. So what you think is going to be based off of your own relationship with your brain and your own relationship with your feelings. And if that relationship is discordant, you're going to think some things that don't make sense. And you can either choose to try to do the work to investigate that and be more in harmony with yourself and thus more in harmony with what you have evidence of, or you can dig your heels and you can live like the Democratic Party. I just got to move further right. Everybody else is the problem. It's not me. Call Me Ike says, and I'll leave with this. Elliot, I wrote this before, but it's something I wanted you to see. Male artists spit on their fans, attack them, be abusers, and more. If everything about Chappell Roan was even true, it would still only make her a rude and unkind person. What all these male artists have done, if it were true, would make them abusers and rapists and even murderers and more depraved things. The parasociality of celeb worship is an extension of the systems that be. Great. That's a great way to put it, and a great way to end what has been 2.5 hours of me yapping. This was exhausting. I need a lot of water. I need rest. I need to meditate, as Wong Wen just alluded to. I need anything except social media. But I thank you so much for being here and for listening to me. Please go drink water. Please go have a good day. And never forget to keep working with yourself and your own consciousness, because otherwise you can end up doing weird shit. Have a good one.